Arizona State gets the job done against Oregon tonight, 81-57 to close out the series sweep against the Ducks. I'm Nick Borgia for Devil's Digest, alongside is our publisher, Hode Rubino. And Hode, just a totally dominant win for the Sun Devils tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because you look at the first Pac-12 win for Arizona State was actually on the road at Eugene, a much closer affair. And you could actually make the argument that Oregon actually was in a slump, especially that early in the season. But this is a very different Oregon team. I mean, coming into tonight, this was the number 2 team in the Pac-12 standings. And for Arizona State to notch this victory, I would say is almost as impressive as really beating UCLA in triple overtime a couple weekends ago. And look, I mean, this really was a complete game. I mean, you just look at the score, 81-57. I think you can just imagine what the stat sheet looks like. A very torrid shooting pace for the Sun Devils, shooting 57% from the field, 45% from beyond the arc. Marion Jackson comes off the bench, albeit just a minute and a half into the game, but still comes off the bench and provides 14 points in the first half. Was 4 of 4 from his first 4 three-point shot attempts. DJ Horn, who's been, I would say, maybe in a mini slump, scored 10 points in the first 5 minutes of the second half. And really, this was a second half where Arizona State came in with a lead. And we talk about all these halftime comeback victories by Bobby Hurley teams. This is actually a game where ASU had a pretty comfortable lead coming into the second half and really put the pedal to the metal from the opening tip-off of the second half, and really did not relent. Was actually up double digits for the lion's share of that period. You know, we mentioned Jackson and Horn, but when we look at Jalen Graham, I mean, his ascension just continues. 18 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, this is one thing that I'm never sick of talking about, is how much his passing, especially from the double team, has really improved. He did a great job feeding mostly Kimani Lawrence, who had 16 points. Jalen Graham also really stuffed the stat sheet with 2 blocks. Really, I think his play inside against an Oregon team that maybe wasn't as long as some other squads that ASU faced in the last couple of weekends, but still a team that's not lacking for length. And I thought Jalen Graham and Kimani Lawrence, for that matter, did really well in the paint. ASU did control the boards 40-29, had 10 offensive rebounds. So, like I said, Nick, this is one of these games where the score really just gives you a good indication what the stat sheet is going to look like. Pretty much a domination across the board for the Sun Devils. The one blemish, I'd say, would be the free throw shooting. Luckily for Arizona State, one of its worst free throw shooting performances was really regulated more to the first half rather than the second half, and obviously didn't matter in an absolute rout by the Sun Devils.
Absolutely, and we'll shift to the defensive side of the ball now. ASU doing what they've been doing all season defensively, obviously holding the Ducks to just 57 points. And I want to bring up the three-point shooting for the Ducks. ASU was able to hold them to 19.2% three-point shooting, and they shot 6 more threes than the Sun Devils, so that just goes to show Sun Devils able to keep that ball outside from under the rim and force the Ducks to shoot.
Yeah, and I think, Nick, it only makes sense that when a team like ASU tonight was up so big in the second half that Oregon really was in constant catch-up mode. And obviously the easiest, maybe not the easiest way, but maybe the quickest way to really bite into a sizable lead is to make good on your three-point shots. But like I said, Arizona State did a great job really defending the perimeter. Even the shots that went in, Nick, some of them were just like impossible shots where you just shrug your shoulders and really tip your cap to the opponent. But ASU overall limiting Oregon to 34.5% from the field. Again, this is really a staple of this Arizona State team this season. I know it hasn't always translated to a great win and loss record by any means, but it's no secret that when ASU plays as well as they do on defense, at a minimum, they give themselves a good chance of winning a game. Like I said earlier, 40-29 domination on the board. Again, even though Oregon is not the tallest team in the conference, I didn't expect ASU to really dominate as much. But in fairness, I think is really what this was desperation by Oregon of shooting, like I said, so many threes, being off from beyond the arc, being off even inside the arc. And I thought that ASU really showed a lot of effort. And I think you really have to commend them for really not letting up one bit. Like I said, that second half was pretty much dominated from that tip off that began the last 20 minutes. I was really impressed by that second half performance. Again, this is a much different Oregon team that ASU did face back in early December, and maybe the win back then wasn't that impressive. Like I said, the Ducks were in a slump, but to have an Oregon team that's squarely on the bubble, fighting for its March Madness life, to come in here into Tempe, thinking that maybe this is the game where they can earn a split because they have a game against Arizona and Tucson in a couple of days, and for ASU not only to win but to win big, but it was definitely impressive. And I think the Sun Devil Nation, after the news of Jaden Daniels entering the transfer portal, really need to pick me up, and I think the Hoops team delivered big.
Definitely, they definitely delivered, and the players know this is one of their most dominant performances all season. Marion Jackson, we get to talk to him after the game, and he mentioned how important it is for teams to not peak at the start of the season, but at this point in the season, when you're making a run for that Pac-12 seeding or even the NCAA tournament. So, Hode, would you say that this is the peak of the Sun Devils?
It's hard to answer, Nick, because I think it's been still somewhat of a roller coaster ride the last couple of weeks. I mean, you can look at losses against U of A and Washington, where ASU for long stretches of the contest did not even show up. Then you have the win tonight. You obviously have the triple overtime win against UCLA the other weekend. Even the loss to USC, yes, it goes in the wrong side of the column, if you will, but it really was a good performance by ASU. So maybe it's more stabilizing the last few games, I would say. So I don't know if I would really call it a peak. I mean, they have a game against Oregon State. Really curious to see how they can do then. And then 2 games on the road against Utah and Colorado. And maybe that, to me, Nick, would really define if this team is really peaking going into the postseason, which is obviously the Pac-12 tournament. Needless to say that if ASU is going to gain a March Madness berth, it's going to be maybe a near impossible task to win 4 games and 4 nights in Las Vegas in the conference tournament. But I think that if you just can maybe compare to ASU's play from the beginning of January until now, and I know they had to have some games postponed in the beginning of January, but nonetheless, I think that you are seeing some better play. I don't know so much if I would call it a peak, but again, I think the next few games would really determine that, because again, a little too much of a roller coaster. But I think it's great to see that ASU does have it in them to beat some of the best teams in the Pac-12, like UCLA a couple weekends ago, and tonight against Oregon.
And the Sun Devils will look to carry that momentum into their game against Oregon State here on Saturday. Until then, my name is Nick Borgia. That's our publisher, Hode Urbino, and we thank you so much for tuning in.